Thank you. I don't know if we're at a tipping point, but I've been to several events in the last couple of months which give me hope. The first was an event related to the Jordan River lands, where we saw a huge number of people come out. And again, an audience that had lots of young people in it, just like this one. And then there's the work that's being done in Langford in terms of the interchange. In a month, they were able to gain 2,200 signatures that is questioning the process that Langford Council used in deciding to borrow $25 million. Within my municipality of Esquimalt, within a week, we had 500 signatures that was looking at trying to slow the process in the sewage treatment decisions and maybe look at other technologies and other solutions that have been planned. And there's this event. And I'm encouraged that we have a growing protest movement, maybe, a growing ability to mobilize people to try and take some action toward making a statement about what they want for themselves and their communities. So I commend you all for being here, and particularly the young people. I'm very encouraged. As Derek said, I'm the leader of the BC Green Party, the provincial party. I'm going to just summarize the Green Party of Canada's position on SPP, and then I want to talk to you about where I see provincial issues related to SPP and the need to be very cognizant that there are provincial ramifications to this agreement. The Green Party, I'm not a spokesperson for the Green Party of Canada. I am a member. But I just wanted to summarize for you the position of the Green Party of Canada. They would withdraw from SPP. We don't have as strong a position as the Canadian Action Party on abrogating NAFTA, but we do have a position that is close to the Canadian Action Party. And I think they come together. At some point in time, we need to say that this agreement is not in the best interests of Canadians, and we need to get out of it. The Green Party of Canada believes that trade deals must be open and democratic so that they're accessible to all of us, so we know what's happening, so we know what the discussions are. We believe in fair trade, not free trade, and we believe in economic, social, and ecological justice, not the interests of the investors. We believe it's the government's responsibility to protect its citizens and the environment. So now I want to switch to the provincial scene because that's where I'm interested, where I'm committed, and I want to talk about what I see as some of the things that are happening at the provincial level which have very broad ramifications under SPP. I went to the provincial government site to look at BC and NAFTA, see what's happened under that. And the BC government believes that because we're a very highly trade-dependent economy, that we need market access, particularly to the American market, for our goods, services, and investment. And they believe, according to the government of BC, that NAFTA is a success story because of that. They do comment that there have been some problems in BC because of NAFTA, particularly related to the forestry and lumber industries and to food and agriculture. Those are issues related to the anti-dumping subsidy and countervailing duties. They say that there's been some cost to employment and revenues because of those things. We all know the history of the softwood lumber industry, and in agriculture and food there's been some issues related to some of the things that we grow in BC, potatoes, onions, red and golden delicious apples, sugar beer and lettuce, and Canadian greenhouse tomatoes. And yet the BC government, despite the fact that there has been some penalties under NAFTA, for the economy of British Columbia wants more liberalized rules. And so we have to be concerned with this current government that their priority is toward a more integrated trade system, which is the basis of the SPP as well. So what are the areas that we might want to be concerned about related to provincial jurisdiction? So under SPP, everything is on the table. We've already heard very eloquently the issues related to water, and there is an intention under SPP to redirect water from BC to the US. If you look at a map of BC, you see that along the border with the US, there's some very big lakes. And so we need to be very careful about our understanding of what might happen in the provincial jurisdiction. They also want energy on the table. When they first met, the three amigos met down in Mexico, they talked a lot about integrating energy continent-wide. One of the things that the BC government is currently touting is that we want to get to self-sufficiency in energy. It's very difficult to imagine that we can achieve that self-sufficiency if we are going to be required to share our energy with the United States and Mexico. I think we ought to be careful about hydro being our primary source of non-carbon-based energy production. And we are already importing about 18% of our electricity from carbon-based sources, dirty sources of energy. And it seems to me that we need to be careful. How can we get to self-sufficiency? How can we get to a renewable source of energy if we have this agreement in place? The agreement also deals with resources, the desire to have expedited extraction of resources. And we already have an expedited extraction of resources within the province of BC, promoted very much by the current Liberal government. Forestry is another area that we need to be concerned about. We've seen failed forestry practices which are of concern to those of us who believe that a forest has a purpose other than fiber and wood, and we need to look at that. I think we also need to be careful about what are the implications with the current moratorium on oil and gas. There's many of us in BC, the majority of British Columbians, want that moratorium maintained. And yet, oil and gas and energy sharing is a big part of this agreement. We also, I think, need to be concerned about food. There's many of us that are looking at food security and particularly the issues related to our ability to grow our own food and feed our own people first. The other thing that, 2 minutes, I think we need to worry about is the harmonization. Denise talked about the harmonizations of regulations related to pesticide use. There's also concerns about unsafe product, those kinds of things. I think we also need to be concerned about public education. There is, I think, in this agreement, a further corporatization of schools and the curricula, not only at the post-secondary level, but also in the public school level, and an Americanization of values and priorities within our education system. There's some consequences for integration of police training and law enforcement, which are provincial issues. There's some workers' rights issues which are important for us to be aware of. These are also things that happen, expanded use of temporary workers with lower conditions and work standards. I want to just touch on two things before I close, and those are two things that are happening at a provincial level which I think play in completely to SPP. One of them is TILMA, the Trade and Labor Mobility Agreement, which has been signed currently with Alberta. This is another free trade agreement. It's another piece of the puzzle. There is a big push within the provinces of Canada, particularly with our evangelist premier, to try and sell TILMA across the country. Once we have harmonized everything within the country, it's much easier to harmonize it with the SPP. And so those of you, I know there's a lot of people in this audience that have already been protesting TILMA. That's a good thing to do. We need to make sure that that agreement is canceled as soon as we can. The final thing I want to comment on is the BC Gateway Initiative. The BC Gateway Initiative is a superhighway. It's a trade initiative. It's talked a lot about with our access to the Pacific Rim, but it really is a superhighway where we are looking at how do we get cheap goods from China to the United States faster. We're using our highway. It's also got pipeline implications, particularly to the Prince Rupert port area, and carrying stuff back to the oil sands, and the oil sands become a superhighway to the United States under the SPP agreement. In the Premier's throne speech, they talked about an energy corridor in the middle of British Columbia. We need to be worried about that as well. So I'll just leave it at there. Those are provincial issues. That's my concern, but I think they play in completely to the concerns that you all have about SPP as an extension of NAFTA. Thank you.